Hey there, welcome. Thanks for joining me. So today I'm going to be sharing two different DIYs that I'm actually going to be using in my dining room. Hope you guys enjoy. So the first one we're going to be making is a lantern. And I know you probably have seen quite a few different versions of a lantern, but I still wanted to go ahead and share one kind of lantern that I'm making that's basically like a two-tier lantern that I'm going to be using in my dining room. What you're going to need are the two of these 5x7 picture frames, and all I did was add some E6000 and hot glue in order to insert and add my glass, back into the frame. Now I'm going to set that to allow it to dry, and I'm going to do the same thing to the second frame. So once they're all completely dry, what I did was I flipped one of the mirrors right side up. Then I got my painter sticks, and what I'm going to do is basically make like an angle with the painter sticks, putting one on each side of my picture frame, on the outside of my picture frame. I had thought about putting it on the inside, but I decided to go ahead and put it on the outside. So go ahead and add one painter stick to each corner to form that little L-shaped corner. Just like that. And then you just add a little bit of E6000 or permanent glue and a few dots of hot glue at the bottom of your painter stick in order for it to stay. And continue doing this to all four corners. Now, as you can tell, I also chose not to add any glue in between my painter sticks. And the reason why I did that was because I know I'm going to add some more of the same glue and do the same process when I add the second picture frame on the top. So I figured I wouldn't need any in between. But if you don't feel comfortable doing it this way, go ahead and feel free to add some maybe hot glue or permanent glue in between each one of the painter sticks so they can stick all the way straight up to the top. But again, you don't need it. It works just fine the way I'm doing it. So once you're done adding all of your painter sticks to all four corners, so just go ahead and allow that to dry for just a few minutes. Then we're going to add our second picture frame to the top of our lantern. And the way I found it easiest to do is basically add my E6000 and hot glue to the corners of my frame, instead of adding it individually to each one of my painter sticks. When you do this process, make sure your hot glue gun is on high temp. That way you'll have enough time to flip over your lantern over your picture frame, and it won't dry on you. The hot glue won't dry. So basically, I just placed my picture frame down on the table, and then I added my lantern on top, flipping it over. That way my painter sticks could go over or around my frame for the second time like this. And then just go ahead and allow that to dry again, just for a little bit. It doesn't take that long because of the hot glue. And then what I'm going to do is paint this, and I'm giving it kind of like just a rough coat, because I am planning on spray painting my lantern. But I've noticed that with these painter sticks, I don't know if it's just this style of painter sticks, but it doesn't take the paint very well if I don't, or the spray paint very well, if I don't add some kind of base coat onto my painter sticks. It usually takes, I have to do at least 2 to 3 coats before it'll stay on here with spray paint. So what I found is if I paint these first and allow them to dry, then I can put spray paint on them, just one even coat, and I'll be fine. But if I'm going to paint them white, I usually paint white, and so on and so forth. Depending on what color I'm going to paint the painter sticks is what kind of base paint I use. So here I am just going ahead and painting them again brown, and you can just paint them brown and it looks perfectly fine, but the style that I was going for, I wanted to paint mine black. So I finally decided to take all my Easter decor down, even though I really felt like I still wanted it up for some reason, but I went ahead and took it all down and decided to start decorating for spring. And I have a lot of lemon decor, so I want to incorporate that into my decor again for this year's spring. But I also wanted to incorporate some black and white into my decor. Last year it was basically all yellow and white, so I wanted to add a little bit more black into my decor. So that's why I decided to go ahead and paint this black, and I'm adding black and white ribbons here and there to incorporate with my yellow lemons. So how are you guys decorating this year for spring? Are you using the same decor, or incorporating a few more extra items and plus your decor from last year, or are you just completely going to do something new this year? So once you've added your base coat or your paint, just go ahead and allow it to dry. It doesn't take very long, again, because I only did one coat. I'm going to use these branch pieces that you could have gotten at Dollar Tree to use as the legs. Now there's quite a few different options. You can use the silver napkin rings as legs, just depending on what style or what you want to use. There's quite a few different options that you can use for that. I just decided to go ahead and use these since I had them on hand. And all I did was use E6000 and hot glue to add them one to each one of my corners. Now, if you do use these legs, just make sure that you get 4 of them that are basically the same height. It doesn't matter about the size, just the height. That way they can be balanced and even, and it won't tilt everywhere. So once you added those, go ahead and flip it back over, and now we're going to add the top part of our lantern. You can leave it as is, but I decided to go ahead and make more of that house shape on the top. And what I did to do that was I used 2 more picture frames, and I got the longest size, which would be the 7-inch size frames or sides of your frame, and I'm going to use 2 of them to add 4 on the top of my lantern as a little house peak. So I'm using 2 right here. This is 1 picture frame, and I'm just going to save the other side of this picture frame for another project. And the way I added these peaks were with E6000 and hot glue. So just go ahead and continue adding your E6000 and hot glue. And then you add it to opposite corners and just hold them for a few minutes just to allow that top peak to dry. Once you've done that, go ahead and do the same process with the other 2 sides of that frame. And now you have 4 of the smaller sides of the frames to use for another project, which you can make a smaller lantern if you like, or any other kind of project. And then just go ahead and set that aside, allow it to dry, and then you go ahead and spray paint it the color of your choice. So our second DIY that I'm going to use for my dining room is I'm actually making this boho style runner for my table. All I did was use 3 of these carpets that you can get at Dollar Tree, and this is the zigzag gray one with the little fringe at the end. What I'm going to do is basically cut one side of that fringe off and leave the other one as is. Then I'm going to grab my second rug and I'm going to cut both of the ends off, keeping those tassels, and I'm going to go ahead and just cut not right at the edge, unless you don't want to use the tassels like I am. But I just left a little, I want to say like a 1/2 inch of fabric on those tassels in order for me to sew them or attach them to my runner. So just go ahead and cut both sides off of one of the rugs. And then what you're going to do is go ahead and grab your third and final one. Now you can use as many as you like on this runner, just depending on the size of your table and how you want it to be. If you want it to hang over your table or just have it placed on top of your table. I wish I would have used 4, but I thought I had enough with just 3, but it looks just fine the way it is. So what I'm going to do is basically make sure that they're all faced. Well, I'm going to sew 2 of them together. Let me make it easier. And I'm going to use the one that I cut both sides off. That's going to be your middle of the runner. And then I used one of the ones that I just cut one side off, making sure they're both faced together. So both sides facing together. And then you go ahead and sew. Now, if you don't have a sewing machine and you're going to use hot glue or some of your iron-on tape, all I say is go ahead and make sure that both of them are nice and even. Maybe add some pins and then go ahead and start using your hot glue. That way you know that you're adding it all straight and even. And one trick that I do when I use hot glue, when I can't use my sewing machine or don't have it on hand, is I use the hot glue. I allow it to dry just slightly while I'm pressing on it, and then I grab my small iron and I iron over that hot glue in order to make it flat, so you won't have that bulgy look to it where you add your hot glue. So that's a trick that you might want to use if you decide to use your hot glue. Then what you're going to do once you attach those 2 together is basically get your third and final rug, and you're going to add them to the side of the middle rug that doesn't have fringe on it and that you haven't attached. And again, add them both facing inwards or right side up, facing each other, and then just sew those 2 together. So once you're done attaching all 3 of your rugs together, just go ahead and remove any of the thread or anything that you need to remove. And then what I'm going to do is basically get my edges or the ends of my runner, and I'm going to use those tassels that I cut off of all the rest of these rugs, and I'm going to attach them onto the edges of my runner. And you can attach them and decorate them any way you like, making different designs with them. I decided to go ahead and make 2 little arches at the end of each one of my runner. And all I did was add some pins to the runner, the tassels. That way I know where it's going to be, and I'm going to place it exactly, or at least try to place it exactly the same on either end. Of course, you can measure if you like to make sure you have it all at the same height and the size, but I kind of, again, just eyeballed it and just kind of figured where the corner's at and where I wanted the center to be at, and how deep of a V or the circle I wanted to shape it with. So just go ahead and do that to both tassels. You do have a total of 4 extra tassels that you cut off of your rugs, and that's what I used, 2 on either end of my runner. All I did was try to make sure that the top runner covered the bottom little strip of that runner that I left so I could sew it on. And I will be showing you how to do it with your hot glue gun. Now, I didn't use my iron with the hot glue gun on this part simply because I felt like I didn't need to, but I would recommend, if you feel a little bulge when you do add hot glue to fabric, just grab your iron and just kind of lightly iron it, and then behind it just kind of press on it to make sure it stays nice and flat and it doesn't look like you hot glued it onto your fabric. So here I am just showing you how I did it to sew one, and then I'll show you how you can use your hot glue gun. And if you do sew this and decide to do it this way, make sure you sew right at the edge of that extra piece of fabric that's connected to your tassels. That way you won't have any of those threads pulling off or anything like that when you're gonna wash it or what have you. So just go ahead and continue following that and removing your pins as you go. So this was a really simple and fast way to make a runner for your table for any holiday. And I've seen these at Pottery Barn and different stores, and they're roughly maybe even $30 to $40 depending on where you purchase it, and I made mine for $3, so that's a great bargain. So here I am. I'm going to show you how you can do it with your hot glue gun. Basically, just remove your pin, and then I flipped it over just one pin at a time. Then I added my hot glue, and then I just laid it right flat back down, making sure the fabric on the bottom was nice and straight. And I already knew kind of where I was going to place it, so I'm just went ahead and placed it and then flattened it down. And then once you're done and you allow everything to dry, go ahead and remove all those threads. And actually, when you do use hot glue, if you decide to do it this way, that hot glue is going to help from that thread and that piece of fabric to just keep pulling on that thread. It'll actually stop it. So it's kind of like you sewed a seam on it. So that's a great thing. If you don't feel comfortable just figuring out where you need to place that corner, just go ahead and remove the pin and then place the pin right back on that corner so you know where to lay the end of your tassel row at. That way it can stay the same way and even. Just like that. Now go ahead and remove the middle pin. Make sure it's all glued in the middle and you're done. So see how simple it is? So you can use your hot glue gun to do this project as well. Now I wanted to show you how I'm going to decorate both of my items and how I'm going to use them in my dining room. So here I am just adding some moss, and then I'm going to add a few lemons onto that little vase, and that's that plastic square vase from Dollar Tree. I'm adding my little white bird, and then I made this tassel with using the beads from Amazon, and I'll leave that link down below as well. And also that round disc is from Dollar Tree. So I'm just gonna go ahead and drape that around my lemons and vase just to kind of lay it there. And now here's something that I do sometimes when I want just a little bit of flowers or something in an area that I really don't want to add a vase or anything like that. I get one of those moss foam rocks that you can get at Dollar Tree. It's like a little foam ball, but shaped like different sizes of rocks. And I use it basically to insert my flowers, and that way you don't have to worry about a vase or hiding it because it just looks like a little greenery piece, your flowers coming out of that greenery piece. Something I do with my lemons is I add toothpicks and then I insert them into whatever area I decide to keep them. That way they don't roll around. So that's what I did to that lemon, and just kind of allowing those flowers to hang off of my lantern and drape down. I ended up deciding to put my bird on the top and then just add a simple lemon on the bottom like that. So these right here are my candle holders, and I have a tutorial on how to make these as well. On the tutorial, I believe they were all clear, and I decided to keep mine and paint them white. So here I'm just using a little container that you can get in the office supply area. I believe they're for like paper clips and what have you, little containers that you can get in that area. And all I did was add a foam in the middle, and I'm adding my greenery around that container. Now the reason why I'm doing this is, for one, I don't have to use a foam and glue it onto my actual candle holders, because I don't want that, because I use these in different ways. And another way is because it's easier this way. That way, if you decide to add any kind of candle or anything into your lantern, the greenery isn't going to cover it all up, because it's going to have some height with that foam in the middle. So this is just the way I make mine. But you can, of course, add a vase or just glue your greenery around your lantern candle holders if you like. So here I am showing you how I add my toothpick into my limes or lemons, and then I insert them wherever I choose to have them, and they stay without any glue. And that way I can reuse them and they're not damaged. So here I am just adding some succulents, some greenery. I'm adding a little bit of yellow, like wildflower type style flowers that I purchased at Dollar Tree. So just use what you have based on the colors that you're going to use for whatever area. And then again, I'm just adding my little candle in the center. Now you can keep it like this, but I decided to go ahead and add some moss so you won't see that foam. And so it just looks fuller in the middle. And there you have it. So I did that to both of mine. And this is the way they're going to be placed on my table with my runner. So what do you guys think? Simple, but enough, I think. And that's the way my lantern looked on top of my buffet table. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up and share with friends and family. Until next time, you guys stay safe, stay busy, and stay blessed. Bye.